Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lizard Brains podcast. I'm your host, DJ Allison Drini. I'm joined by my co-host, Tom O'Gorman. Tom, how's it going today?
Yes, car.
I love
See my
that shirt. I wish that was
I
our
finally
shirt.
got it
Where did you get that?
from NASCAR.
That was a NASCAR shirt,
There is official NASCAR merch that says "YASCAR" for Pride,
and it's all
and I
like
had to have
rainbowy
it.
and stuff. I like that. Yeah, that's cool.
I'm good. I honestly, I had a very, very boring week. I don't have a lot to report from my week, which makes me a little sad, but it's been good. How about you?
Okay. I'm good. Uh, the iRacing update just launched, and they changed a bunch of things and added in some new tracks and cars. And Tom, I like the bend. It's like a 37 corner track that's like 5 miles long. It's like 3 minute lap times. It's pretty good.
I did buy that one. It's a little track. It's a huge track in the middle of nowhere in Australia. I'd never heard of that actually. I'd heard of the Bend Motorsports Park. I didn't realize it was that.
Oh,
Did
uh,
you stay up past your bedtime, like running laps,
no, I got it. I got it this morning. I did laps
lunch
before
break?
work. Yeah, I did laps before work and on my lunch break. So and then I
Nice.
did a race immediately after because I was like, oh, I'm gonna catch all these people. I haven't driven the track yet, and I did, and I won, and I felt bad about it. I felt a little wrong. I was like, these people don't even know where the track goes, and I'm out here just running laps. Um,
Yeah.
but it was a pretty tough racetrack to learn just because there's so many corners and a lot of them look the same and the angles are slightly different on each of like the apexes of corners that looks like kind of the same. So it took me too many laps to get used to that
And
racetrack.
not to mention, it's out in the bush. The bush. I don't know how they say the bush, but there's no reference points anywhere because it's out in the field in the middle of nowhere outside Adelaide. So there's like no trees. There's some power lines, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And it's not because the game didn't model it correctly. It's just in the middle of BFE. So you're right. It's really hard to pick up even like where am I? I don't know
Yeah,
where I'm at.
which corner was this again? I like even if I daydream for a second, I'll be like, "Oh yeah, this is the right-hander where like I can carry a lot of speed through." No, it's not. Oh my goodness. Like that just keeps
How do
happening.
you how do you go about that? Because my thought process with that is I drive by sight, and when I make mistakes, I more or less think about like oh, track out here. And then I just kind of hope that I remember next time. If I'm thinking, I don't really know where I'm at. Oh, this is the one where I track out more. And then I just like check off the mistakes that I made and fix them to try to make them go away as fast as possible.
I'm trying to remember
Different.
like where I hit the brakes and what my angle at apex is and what the relationship like after apex is. You know that one left-hander that like leads onto like a runway or something?
No, I don't know this track well enough, but go ahead.
Okay. It just like go like the track gets like 3 times as wide as it normally is, and it's like a left-hander. So, but like you can't see it because it's like off camber cresting, so you can't really see the exit like when you start to turn into the corner. Um, but I know
Okay.
like okay, that's the second left that looks like the other left, but this is the second time I've seen the left that looks exactly the same. I can get on throttle early here. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of there's probably a better approach. Honestly, I think it's way easier to learn a track in real life. I don't know why in the sim it's harder. I'm not sure because
Yeah, I'm with you.
it took me like 20 minutes of like bumbling around to be like, hey, I put together a lap with like something that resembles like my optimal sector time.
Fair, but on a 5 mile track, that's like 4 laps.
True. I
It would
mean,
take you a long time to learn a 35 corner 5 mile track in any circumstance,
I guess
I
you're right.
think.
Maybe I should be a little bit easier on myself. It just felt like it took too long. And it didn't help that like other people were in there and maybe they actually knew the track and they were going like faster like right away. I was like, "Oh." Like and it took me
I thought
longer
you
to
said
get
you were
there.
shooting fish in a barrel.
Not in the morning. I was
Oh,
hanging
okay.
out with all the Europeans.
And the Australians who are up late.
Yeah. Oh, the Australians, they probably know that place like the back of their hand.
Yeah, it's one of their 12 tracks to pick from.
Yeah. Even
We
though
have 12 tracks within 8 hours of our house.
yeah. It's we should be lucky. We should consider ourselves lucky. Because we kind of are lucky with all the racetracks that we have. Though in Europe, I think they have even more racetracks, like in a 8 hour radius than we do.
Yeah, but you have to cross state, not state, country boundaries. Although I guess it's pretty much all EU, so it probably doesn't matter.
It probably doesn't
They probably
matter.
mostly move around like they're moving around states. If anybody lives in the EU, tell us. How does that work?
Yeah, also, Tom's gonna be there in, like, a month, and, he would love to, 3 weeks? 6 weeks?
3 weeks.
3
Yep.
weeks.
July
You held
1st
up
through
2
16th.
threes. I was like,
I was double excited.
"Yeah, okay." Uh, but they also changed the tires on the GT3 cars, and they feel, like, squishier and more forgiving, which is kinda cool. So, I've
Mhm.
been having fun with that.
I was liking it last night until I wasn't, and then I kinda hit my limit with iRacing, so I just called it a night.
Yeah, I think you got bored, and then you were like, "Wait, why aren't I having fun anymore?" And then it took you,
Yeah,
like,
I
2
did.
races to, like, realize you weren't having fun, and then you were like, "Yeah, okay, actually, I don't have to do this."
Right. I've gotten pretty good at identifying that, although I've been on that kick for a couple weeks, and this week I took it a little easier. Things burn bright for me, and then they just burn out. I have a problem with that.
It's Tom the Supernova.
Yeah. You drove in real life this weekend though, right?
I did, I went to, a
Your
Toledo.
highlight was iRacing so far?
Yeah, kinda. I love iRacing. Um, yeah, I went to, a Toledo, Express Airport autocross, and I was driving with Emily Brown in a STX/DST, twin, and those cars are slower than I remember them being. Like,
They're pretty pathetic, aren't they?
I kinda remembered, like, the ST version of the car, like, having a little bit more guts to it, and I've been spoiled by, like, the 2nd gen twins with, like, actual horsepower. Like, it was way slower than I thought it would be. Also
Yeah.
also, it I forgot that first gen twins when, like, the steering's really loaded up, like, the electric power steering just kinda, like, cuts out. And then so, like, I was having a hard time, like, understanding the load of the front tires because when I really got it loaded up, like, the steering would just, like, flip a switch and be, like, completely different because the electric power steering's like, "Nah, I'm gonna sit this one out."
Oh, it was grippy enough at Toledo to actually have that happen on the
Yeah,
autocross course?
like, consistently, yeah.
Wow. I don't know that I haven't driven those cars a whole lot with autocross, but I don't think I've ever had that happen on a road course.
I've had it
But
happen, like the sinkhole at NCM, like really like
of course,
loaded
yeah.
areas, or like Madness and Mid Ohio, like areas where you're like throwing the car into a hill. It happens pretty consistently, but generally your
Yeah.
hands are pretty set at that moment. But there was like a decreasing radius turn that it would happen in the middle of it, and I was like, ah, crap, like, I don't know exactly what the load is on the front tire, so I was, like, trying to, like, listen to the front tires to, like, get some kinda cue of what was happening to them, because I couldn't rely on, like, the information I was getting through, like, the steering wheel.
Sure. Yeah, I don't wait, Lugard said there's some preventions for that. What, do you run a quart half full?
No, it's electric power steering. I think, the
I know.
newer, I think they wear out, and then if you, like, swap
Mm.
in a newer one, then that doesn't happen if I remember right. Lugard, if you wanna correct us. I know there are some preventions to it, I don't know exactly what they are. I was telling
It was
Emily
even
that
happening.
I was telling
Go ahead.
Emily that she should look into it because that was making the car much harder than it needed to be to drive.
Yeah. Interesting. I was still having that happen on my 2nd gen at Barber, and, uh, I think a couple different places at Barber where the car really loads up. I didn't know that you could really deal with that, but I do think it's one of the most unique little characteristics of a car that I've ever experienced where they all do it, and if you don't know it's gonna happen, it can be pretty alarming because 'cause you're like, the woman I was coaching recently, um, races an FRS, and she was having it happen in hog pen every lap, and I don't even remember how it came up, but she didn't really ask about it, and I mentioned it, and she's like, "Oh, that's normal?" Like, "Yeah, but I don't know how
Sh
you're supposed to know that,"
She
you
probably
know?
just thought her car was breaking, but yeah, I think
Yeah,
I think that happened, like, the first time I was at NCM when I was driving, like, I think Ito's FRS there, and I brought it up to
yeah,
Ito, and he said, "Oh, that's just a thing that these things do." So, if, like, from that point forward, I was like, "Oh, that's just a thing these things do."
yeah. Can you think of any other quirks from cars you've driven that are like that? I can think of this is not relatable, but
Uh,
like a 5th gen Viper, do you have to drive them within, like, an extra foot maybe because they sometimes just end up different places
oh,
because 'cause they're,
really?
like, hand built they're, like, quote, unquote, "hand built" out of, like, parts bin parts and truck parts and stuff, so they're not, like, great, but they are highly capable, so you just have to, like, take care of that part of them. or
Okay,
else you end up like wider than you meant to, or narrower than you meant to, or whatever.
so Lou got dropped the knowledge bomb in the chat. He goes, zero preload end links. Make sure
Okay.
the rod ends slash ball joints of the end link are in phase, meaning you can rotate the end link freely. Okay, that makes sense. Adding compression uh, into the shocks will help slow down the electric power steering cutout. Make
Yeah.
sure the tires aren't hitting anything. Uh, car guy shit, guilty. That was his whole list.
Okay.
So it sounds like some fiddling with the end links is probably gonna be the biggest gain there. But I could see it like because if the end links kind of like I think that's what was happening with the SSC car. I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast, but every once in a while on track, like the thing would just like want to snap and like murder my ass on a racetrack. And I think the
Yeah.
end links would kind of like end up like a little sideways, and then it would have like less of a movement. So when it was like fully loaded in, it would bind a little bit, and then it would like kick the rear tire essentially because the end links they don't stay like perfectly centered where they have maximum like articulation on each end of them. Sometimes I think they would like drift like to rotate like clockwise or counterclockwise, so they would have less articulation to them.
Hmm. Yeah, that all makes sense. The other thing I think of is like ice mode in Chevy cars. That's like a big, big, big thing. But if you don't know to expect it, you're probably like, what the hell?
Dude, the first time I drove a fifth gen Camaro, I've grown so much as a driver since then. But I had one muscle memory of how I got in the brakes, and the fifth gen freaking hated it. That was the worst autocross event of my life. I couldn't adjust to it. I was like, it was so frustrating because like my muscle memory of how I got into the brake pedal was so like unadjustable. Like how I
Yeah.
got into the brakes was how I got into the brakes, and there was no changing that. And now I'm much more flexible on that. But at the time, there was no changing how I got into the brakes, so I was just getting ice mode everywhere. And fifth gen Camaro ice mode, or hold on, we're triggering every GM employee ever. Uh somebody told me what they actually call it like in house. It's like differential mu like trip or fault
Oh,
or
come
something
on.
like that.
No, 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 no. We're not doing all that. None of these verbal gymnastics.
Anyways, uh it you don't even slow down at all. Like you just go.
No, the fifth gens are really, really,
Yeah, you
really
just
bad.
go. The thing that always catches me out is an H pattern on a BMW because the reverse is uh, like to the left and up. And anytime I'm doing the first to second shift, I hit the edge of that gate and I miss second gear shift without fault, like every time.
Huh. I thought of one with BMWs, but it was more like the E30 through E46s, and even like the Z4s from that period. All the shift knobs come off if you grab them too aggressively, and I've ripped off so many BMW shift knobs.
I'm gonna have to say I've never had that happen before.
I've had it happen in it's a bunch of Z4s, E46s, E36s. It's like such a thing that now I'm just like put it down and shift
You're
instead of like
you're like reassembling it as you drive. You do
yeah,
this thing. You ever notice the thing you do when you're driving? Like I've watched an in-car review. You'll like you'll like twist the knob or like massage it or whatever, like as you're just driving.
you know why?
Why?
That's all S2000 videos, and it's because all of the shift knobs in all the S2000s I drive unscrew the shift knob while I'm driving.
Oh,
So I literally have the same way you would left foot tap the brake before a brake zone. I have muscle memory after shifts to like rescrew the shift knob down
so
with
that's
my right hand.
so
And
that's
now
a
I just it's just in me now. Yeah.
that's a stupid thing with S2000s apparently. Guys,
I have
in the chat, let's throw down some weird car quirks of just something that you do because of a specific car.
yeah. I love this. Um so the event went well though. You got second overall? First in class,
Yeah,
second overall?
I should have had first. My last run was like the same time as my second to last run, but I I just somehow figured out how to drift the car on accident, and it was the longest crash I've ever had that never happened. Like the whole run was just me like wiping out, and then all of a sudden there was a finish line.
You like never caught it? It was just a
It,
crash through the whole
it
course?
was a crash through the whole course. I should show you the video. It's stupid.
I want to see that video because I
It's
don't think
really
I've ever
dumb.
had a run go wrong from start to finish without figuring it
The
out.
moment I would
Something like
think
bailing. Usually I bail. Sorry, go ahead.
the moment I would think, I'm like, okay, good, we're good, we're good. I would like turn into the next corner, it was like iRacing tires. It's like, oh no, you slid that last corner. Now the rear tires really don't like you, and we're gonna keep that going.
You're sure like Emily or Dan or somebody didn't come by and air up the tires or some crazy shit?
No, you know what? It's been a while
You're not
since
sure?
while since I drove on Yokohamas. I don't know if they do the iRacing thing where like if you go for a slide, you're like just prone for more slides. But I had a big slide like in the beginning, and then it was just like a little drift machine like for the rest of the whole thing.
They kind of are. There's actually a really cool video of Andy when we co-drove the NSX together at nationals, and he like has this big on power oversteer coming off a slow corner, and then he flips it back into the next corner, and it ends up just like full drifting, and he's like 45 degrees counter steer, and the one of the pro cameramen is like filming the whole thing,
Oh, nice.
and he hates that video because he knows it's not like the point. But
Yeah, because he's like
we were on
messing it up.
Yokohama's; it's very possible.
Yeah. It's a very forgiving tire. It's been a while since I drove on yoke, so it was nice to drive on them again. And the car was a little pushier than I would have liked it, but I was making a point not to like mess with the car or whatever because I didn't want it to get into Emily's head that like, oh, now the car's different or whatever. Because we were just
Yeah.
focusing on some like high level things, and Emily walked away with like a whole list of homework and things that she can do, and a lot of it is like stuff that she can just like think about while driving around in the street. She doesn't have to wait till the next autocross event to like get better at those things.
I like stuff like that. That kind of ties into our topic today.
It does.
Guys, we have an actual topic.
How long
Oh,
is
before we do that,
yeah.
I the only other things from this week I did were I watched a bunch of Grid Life this weekend.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Congrats everyone who won.
Yeah, especially our one of our podcast subscribers, Andy, who like demolished the street time attack record by like over a second.
Yeah.
And I think he only did like 2 or 3 laps before something happened. He'll chime in, but that was kind of cool to see.
Yeah, I didn't you know what was cool is how many of the people that I know listen to the podcast were like absolute slayers this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Like
Yeah.
David Best got a track record in Sunday Cup. He's in the chat right now.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah, David won, huh?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he won because it came down to the bracket. David, you didn't win, did you? You just got the track record. I think he got third overall. Yeah, third in
Ah.
sprints. Yeah, yeah. One lap hero over here. Am I right? So
Knowing Sunday Cup, it was like 4 or 5 tenths across all the top 5 or
yeah, he
something.
said he was 0.001 off of P2.
Jesus. I will say I really liked their new top 10 qualifying format. Almost, it was almost a 10 out of
Almost.
10
You're talking
in
about for
GLTC.
GLTC, yeah.
They did this thing where they pulled the top 10 from race 2, and they did a random draw for everybody, and draw number 10 raced against draw number 9 on track for like a heads up 1 lap battle. And I was thinking as we were going in, like, this should be wheel to wheel. Like, the lap time thing is kind of like cool, but it should be wheel to wheel. And then it was like the 6th round or something. Matt Waldbaum comes out on track and he's like, I'm just going to make a scene. And he tries to start passing Eric Coutil on the outlap, and Eric catches it happening. So they're both like full tilt coming to the lap, and Matt's just like dogging him. I'm like, yes, that's
Yes,
what it should
that's what
be.
we need.
So
Yeah.
I hope they switch that. But otherwise, it was really fun to watch a bunch of my friends race again. I think the best racing was probably like the top, maybe 5th or 12th in GLTC.
Where it was just like a string of cars without V8s and they were all racing each other.
It was a bunch of cars that were super near each other and able to pass each other. I didn't say anything else. But there was really good battling. And also, it's kind of crazy at this point. I haven't seen a lot of like brand new names in GLTC, so I feel like I recognize all the cars and drivers like almost right away on camera. They don't even have to say who it is, which just makes it really fun to keep up with the battling.
I didn't like the top 10 format thing, and uh I'm not entirely sure how it determined the grid. Like it was just a little confusing as a spectator. I don't think they did, and maybe I just missed like an explanation in the beginning or whatever, but I don't think it like as a spectator, and I could have done some digging and figure out exactly how it worked. But as a spectator, I kind of had no idea how this implicated the next race or anything like that. I feel like that was a miss because I didn't. I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, they're like setting lap times against each other. And most of the cars, except like when Matt was hounding Eric, you could only have one in frame anyways because they were just in like different places on the track, like trying to set a lap time. That's basically what it was. It was like a bracket battle with lap time. So the car, it was like King of the Hill essentially, which I think is a cool concept. But there's two aspects to that that I didn't like. One, uh, I think they needed to be like closer to each other. Like if you get within, and the only way this would work is if you have like splits, and so maybe like hand time splits or something like that, where because they can't do like a wire. But if you're like more than 3 seconds away from the car in front of you, then you automatically lose. Like it's almost like a checkpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like it forced them to be close to each other if you're going to do lap time. Uh, it to me it was hard to follow. That you couldn't have two cars in frame, and I didn't like the random number draw because it just creates a lot of randomness into what otherwise would be like a fair competition. Like just have number 10 go out first, and if they can be a hero and take down anybody, then cool. Then they get like a better grid spot. Cause to me, then the gridding would make sense. But if like
Yeah.
let's say you were like second seed or whatever, and you went out there first. What do you have to beat 9 cars in order to be second again? Is that how it worked?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Um, but then ultimately the lap times other than the top 2 cars, which were the winner and the loser of the final round, was all based on lap time, not based on elimination order. But that's detailed aside. I think if it was roll races, every single round was like 10th and ninth roll race. They come to the green flag like they're the front row. Green flag drops, car ahead gets to pick which side they want. Race back, first one across the line wins. You don't even need timing for that. And it would be like 10 side by side battles into turn 1 every single time. It'd
Yeah,
be so cool.
that would be way better. But I maybe they don't want to do that for whatever reason. I was just saying if it is lap time, you almost need like splits to be like, "Oh, hey, that person's like they got too far away or whatever." But yeah, obviously the simple solution to that format would just be like, "Hey guys, it's wheel to wheel racing and we're here in wheel to wheel race cars. Let's race wheel to wheel." I think the format that they picked would be kind of cool for like the bracket for like time attack. Like I could see that being kind of neat. Like fifth place, like hey, you better go out there and do a bunch of laps. But at the same time, like time attack cars, they're kind of only geared to do like one lap. So I kind of understand why they have the format that they are, which is a cool format. It makes watching time attack like way more fun.
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree.
where they have
I
to get
also
it
will
done.
say they moved the spectator hill. Sorry, they moved the stage to the spectator hill, which put a bunch more stuff behind the cameras all the time.
It looked
And their
good.
camera work and the sensation of speed and the backgrounds of it all looked like they really got it like
Yeah. It looks super
down.
good. Like it looked like Forza Horizon, which if you can make anything in real life look like Forza Horizon, like you're doing a good job. It was pretty cool.
Agreed. Yeah, that was the other thing I did. I watched some other racing, but I don't remember what it was.
Was it it was uh GT. It was oh Mazda. That's what it was.
Oh yeah, Mid Ohio IMSA was on.
Yeah. I didn't watch the rain race. I heard it
That
was
was
amazing.
rain race. The middle. Oh, the Miata rain race. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was really good.
Okay, I'll have to go back and watch that.
There was some really good battling in the IMSA race as well. But they, to me, the IMSA broadcast product has gone down the drains. Like I don't know if John's just getting old, but his commentary sucks now, and they're like the camera
Damn,
work
what
kind
a
of
hot
sucks.
take.
I'm sorry, but like he's never gonna hear this. But if I was still in IMSA, I'd be like, who do I talk to about this in commentary and not commentary, even just production? The Ford broadcasts are literally just like filleting Ford. The Mazda broadcasts are pretty like mediocre. I don't know. They're just. It feels like they should be the premier broadcast for the premier racing, and they're
is
not.
is Kyle Heyer doing such a good job with grid life? It's making everything else look worse.
No, because I think a lot of European broadcasts have it down.
Yeah, you're right. Well, yeah, the FIA is like this like they're like a well-oiled machine for all like the shortcomings that they have. Like they put on a convincing motorsports product, whether it's Formula 1 or Formula 3 or like the GT3 racing or anything. Like they got it. Like they have a really solid product.
Yeah, I don't want to go into like nitpicking commentary and shit, but I just thought the broadcasting. Honestly, if you put the Grid Life and IMSA broadcasts up side by side, I think IMSA has the better racing product and Grid Life has the better stream from just watching this weekend.
That might be a
And
little
obviously,
biased
that's not to
because
say Grid Life is bad because they're comparing them against like the premier
yeah, yeah,
wheel
yeah.
to wheel. Yeah.
I that might be a little bit biased because it's a little bit more entertaining when you're watching something that you know the people in it.
Um, I don't really know a lot of IMSA people. I'm just talking about
No, I'm saying
the
grid
way
life.
they make
We
things
know
look
most of the
cool.
people that are driving around, so like it makes it a little bit more interesting to watch. That's what I'm saying.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
There's just so much happening on the stream that I'm like, that would be fascinating to talk about, or that would sound so exciting if they were talking about it.
Yeah.
And you can tell he's just like meandering, looking through Twitter, talking like who added them. Like, come on, dude. Like, what are we doing?
You're talking IMSA?
IMSA, yeah,
Yeah.
they do shout outs like every 10 minutes. Thanks for tuning in, IMSA Radio. Like, there's a badass battle for second. Or like there was one where one of the MX5s like took out another MX5 at the corner of the frame. And you could see that it happened, but they just didn't even acknowledge that it happened. And then
Dude,
like a lap and a half later, they figured out that those cars had swapped positions. They're like, well, we don't know where that happened. I'm like, I do. How do I do? And
I
you
do,
don't.
and everyone else watching knows what happened too.
Yeah. That's the kind of stuff I'm
No,
talking
yeah,
about. But
dude, that stuff does drive me nuts. And I would say that Grid Life does a way better job at like if something's happening on screen, like especially Kyle. Like if Kyle sees something exciting happening and like the co-commentator's kind of rambling about something not related, Kyle will literally interrupt that person and be like, "They're three wide." Like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, Kyle does a really good job at that stuff, and other commentary that I see doesn't do that. I see that happening in Formula One too. Like you'll see something interesting happening, and one of the commentators is like telling a story about like back in the day, and it's like it doesn't get, you know what I mean? It doesn't get like acknowledged or
Yeah.
something, or it's like, oh man, add the excitement. Like that's literally your job.
I do think the lead guy for F1 is probably the best lead commentator.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know what that guy's name is, but he's like stellar, and he has
Crofty. I don't know what his first name is. John Crofty? John Croft? I don't know.
no, it's not
Why don't we talk
David.
about Racecraft?
Okay, sure. Our topic today, the actual art of racecraft.
Oh yeah. All right. So our episode about the actual art of racing in the rain was very popular. So we thought, why don't we put together a similar list of the way we look at racing, the way we look at wheel to wheel racecraft, and the ways that you can be a better race car driver, things that you may not have thought about before, things that we think about, et cetera, et cetera.
And this was spurred on by a discussion that was happening in the Discord where people are like, "Ah, wheel to wheel's like an enigma, like it's like a witchcraft stuff like that." And it's like, well, not really, but I could understand like why it's so difficult to learn. And then hopefully after we cover the topic, like hopefully it just like makes a little bit more sense, and you can kind of see like the path that you would take to get better at this thing without just going out there and like trial and erroring away any friendships that you would have potentially on the racetrack.
Or in video games even. All right. So the
Or
first thing
that,
we
yeah.
thought about was first thing we thought about was how do you even look at like the right to racing room? What when does racecraft engagement start? I have a pretty clear definition of this for myself. Mine is the further alongside or the longer alongside you are, the more you have right to racing room. It's completely a gray area. So it's your job to establish your right to having that racing room by either being there a lot for a period of time that they can acknowledge you or being there even a little for a really long time. That's the same. And the last thing with that is the actual line that you want to be driving no longer matters, is no longer part of the conversation once a like wheel to wheel side by side engagement has started. There's no more of this like, well, I had the line, I had the right to the line. Like that is completely out of the question once like one of those engagements start. It's all about where is the right to who has the right to the space.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Nope. I honestly think that's the healthiest way. So, an example, if you're driving down the entire back straight and you have some amount of overlap, like maybe if you guys like turned across each other's plane of existence, like plastic would smush and that's all that would happen. If you have that much like an inch of overlap down the entire straightaway, the driver that's in front just has to assume that that person has earned their place to be there. Now, if you all of a sudden make an uh, an inch of overlap only just at apex, then you probably just took an angle there to just meet the person there, and that is not right to racing room. So you can't like you can't. I think that that's pretty easily distinguishable. Now, if you make overlap before turn in on the brakes, then that's different than meeting them at the apex because it's before you actually turned into the turn, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Um, Someone in the chat asked, "What about dive bombers who go for the space that disappears?" I don't without specifically dive bomb. The difference to me between a dive bomb and like a late move, a dive bomb that is more fair and more of a late move to me is one that maybe you create the overlap in the braking zone or you create the overlap from pretty far back, but you also leave the person reasonable amount of time to see you. So it implies a longer braking zone and a reasonable amount of like space to exist, meaning you don't just run them off the track at the apex for out. Right. So like someone this used to happen a bit in GLTC a couple years ago on Hoosiers, but there were certain cars with amazing brakes that could come from like a car length or two back, but the driver would always park at the apex and leave the other person a space to exist on the outside. To me, that's not a dive bomb. You dove in, yes, but dive bomb to me implies that you stopped leaving someone space to exist or be like you basically run them off the road or they have to avoid you.
Yeah. And I think like having overlap before turn in is the important part there because after turn in, it's going to be a lot harder for that driver that's in front to have any indication of what's happening behind them in the mirrors. Because after turn in, their eyes are at apex, like, and they're like connecting a line from apex to exit, right? They're not necessarily going to notice the flash of a car in their mirror like as they're on the brakes in like a straight line. So if you're going to present, if you're going to make a move, if you're going to do whatever you're going to do, like have that overlap before you turn in because then both cars are aware, "Oh, hey, we're racing here." Like, "Oh, a race broke out," right? But if
Yeah.
you make overlap after turn in, it's only because you took like a shortcut to the apex and in general that means you turned in way earlier to get there first and the chance that that driver is going to be able to see you or even be able to adjust is so much lower that the person who like made took that shortcut to the apex, they're always going to be an asshole.
Wait, say that again. The person who goes for that space is always an asshole?
If you took a shortcut to the apex by just turning in way early and then expecting that person to avoid you, like that is a dick move.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And that to me is like that's classic dive bomb.
Yes.
Dive bomb to me is a negative connotation like
And
all the time.
you'll see it. You'll see people like literally they'll get on the brakes and just have a straight line right at the apex. Like there's no like like concise turn in, whatever. They're just like missiling their car to take occupy this space. And that is like so that's so dangerous. One, because like you're probably so far away from that other car by the time that other car is like turning in that like you never even crossed into their mirrors or anything. You're just there in like this huge blind spot that it's just it's a pointless move. And if even if that person knew that you were there, you took such a terrible angle into the corner, they leave you like whatever the car width or whatever is needed there. And since they use the full radius, they should just drive on by you anyways. You're just making it more dangerous and slowing both of you up. That will never turn into a pass unless the other person just like lets you go by.
Yeah. It does bother me a lot when people get away with there are some people who have pretty successful records driving like that because everyone's just scared of them. It drives me nuts. And there's not much you can do about that until they cause a problem for themselves. But all right, what about some common mistakes for wheel to wheel?
Uh,
Things that pop up.
the thing that I see the most is target fixation, where they'll be watching the car in front of them more than looking at the references and stuff they normally would look at like while creating a lap time. So maybe they're faster than the car that's in front of them. They'll be catching them and then they get to them and now they're just watching that car and now they're just stuck behind that car because now they're no longer going faster than that car and they're making the same mistakes as that car. They're making mistakes of their own because they're not looking at the things they normally would look at to have an accurate lap be put together. And I see it all the time. And the trick is you actually just have to look through the car. You actually really don't look at the cars in front of you hardly at all. Because when they do something weird, your eyes will automatically latch onto them. You don't even have to consciously be like, well, if they do something weird, hopefully I notice it. You will notice it. Like the car will do something weird where like all of a sudden you have to adjust to it. Like maybe they go for a slide or maybe they brake early or maybe the car just brakes because that's what race cars do is they brake sometimes,
Yeah.
all the time. But your focus will automatically shift to it. It's not like you're gonna be like, "Oh crap, I was looking at the apex. I didn't notice that they were spinning." Like you're gonna notice.
Yeah, at least when they grab your attention, then you do the assessment of whether or not that it's worth your attention for a longer period of time, i.e., are they spinning? Or I know when I started wheel to wheel and I followed some people who are quick through corners and I saw the slip angle of other cars, especially like front wheel drive SCCA improved touring cars that are
Yeah,
like fully yawed out with the back end on throttle, like you're looking at the door handle and stuff through the corners. It was a little like jarring, to be honest, but I learned to ignore that in my full view ahead and back to your own references, and you're fine. And the biggest thing with that I see is people just they let it dictate their pace. Yeah, like they don't even realize that they're slowing down,
yeah,
and then they get up to the car that they were fine, and then they're just like stuck there going a second slower. But also target fixation behind you. If you have people behind and you start to get really, really obsessed with the mirrors and figuring out where they are, and then you just lose all reference points for where you're driving, and you start to go slower again, or you start to make big mistakes.
yeah.
It's all the same root thing though.
The hardest thing you can do, the way you can make the driver behind you life as difficult as possible is to execute the best possible laps that you can. And looking at them constantly is not going to accomplish that.
No, I have a bad habit of when I said last week, you get that little chink in the armor where they show you they can go a little quicker than you. I have a bad problem of giving them my attention at that point in time. Like not necessarily during anything important, but every straight, every breather I get, look up, look over, look over, look up, look over, look,
Yeah, yeah.
I have a little bit of an issue with that. Um
I will say
the other
to touch on your like cars like at slip angle in front of you. When I first started racing, I would always like lift. I'm like, oh crap, they're crashing, and then they would gather it up, and then they would like get a couple car lengths on me, and I'm like, crap, they weren't crashing, and I must have fell for that like 8 times in one weekend, and then finally the ninth time, I'm like, he's not going to crash this time. The next time I see that, I'm just gonna keep my foot in it, and I did, and that means it was a mistake for them, and then that means I was able to get like overlap and start like that battle, that engagement.
was this at driver school or was this in like GLTC
It was
early
GLTC
races?
Mid Ohio, my first in 2019, my
So
first
like
time.
the only people in front of you were Eric Teal, Dave Montgomery, and Aaron Lichty. So which one of them was almost
No,
crashing all
so
that?
so at one point I cut a tire and I had to put old tires on, so I fell back and like cause
Right,
yeah,
right.
cause
Okay.
my first two races I was in no man's land, but then I had to put like 3-year-old Hoosiers on, so then all of a sudden I was like mixed up with people. So uh
Yeah.
but yeah, that was the thing. Oh, I want to throw in like a random tip that I don't know where it would fit in, but I learned this in comp school, and it was probably like the greatest thing that was said at comp school. It was just like this really quiet older man in the back of the room, and he wasn't really saying anything, and he like interrupted the instructor, and he said, "If somebody's spinning in front of you, look at their wheels. That tells you where they're going." And then, like everyone turns around, and he goes, "If they're spinning, they could go in any direction. If they aren't spinning, whatever direction they're going, they're going to keep going that way." And I never would think to look at the wheels of the car that's spinning in front of me. Uh, and him giving me that advice is probably saved at least one car when people are like spinning in front of me because I instantly look at their wheels and I know exactly what's going on. And then something else that I learned from Kenton Cook is if the wheels are spinning and you don't know which way they're going to go, so Kenton will drive right at the car and then dodge it last second. He won't commit into where he's gonna go until the last second because it might at some point choose to also flick that way that he went, and now he's already committed to that way, and you can't do anything about it. So these couple little tips, uh, they definitely work in iRacing. I haven't had to
Hmm.
drive at a car spinning in real life yet, to dodge
Yeah.
it last second. But I've seen in car of Kenton doing it and other people doing it. I've seen that be used multiple times, but it seems effective.
Interesting. I can't. I don't think I've ever exercised that actively, but um, I don't know why. I don't think I could tell you what I do when I'm coming up on a spinning car, other than to avoid it, which is not that's not quality advice at all.
Generally,
Um,
I would say 90% of the time, you can just tell which way they're going. But
yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
it's they're the slide is perfectly sideways and the car could hook and go either direction. That's the where I'm talking about, where you actually like you take speed out of the car and you like point directly at them, and then you decide which way you're going to go, because chances are like you're taking speed out, you're pointing at them, by the time you get to them, their car's going to pick a direction, and then you just go the opposite direction, and it makes it easier.
sure. That advice reminds me of when I was trying to get better at drifting, and I was really struggling with tandem drifting, following. And somebody, it was either Robert Thorne or somebody in that crowd that said, look at the right front, or look at the front fender, like at the corner of the car. So like as you're following in tandem behind the car, if you're following and you're staring right, like you're it doesn't really matter where you go because you the course is fixated. You're not really looking where you're going. You're looking at the car, but you're not target fixating on the car. You're just looking like just past the front quarter panel, the front fender panel, to like see, because you pick up the tire angle, you pick up the speed, you pick up like visibility ahead of you that doesn't have smoke in it if you're focusing there. It actually helped really quickly.
Yeah.
Um,
A lot
that
of
to
the
me is
times,
like the equivalent version of looking through the car, because looking through the car still implies that you're picking it up.
yeah. And if it does anything weird, your eyes are going to automatically snap to it. I feel like
Yeah.
a lot of what happens in racing is you just need to realize like what is the actual thing I need to concentrate on here. And if you start concentrating on the actually relevant thing, then it gets way easier. But if you're trying to focus on
Yeah.
all these other things, and maybe one of the things you're focusing on is relevant, but you're focusing on all these other things that maybe add information, but like it just makes it too busy, then it's we should be trying to simplify and like focus on like the one thing that gives you like 95% of the information, rather than like seven things that give you like 50% of the information each, because that's way harder for our brains to compute.
Yeah. The other mistake that I see a lot, we've mentioned it before, but people either worrying where the car is near them, especially once they've gone side by side, or not committing to the pass. Meaning you've initiated the pass, you pop out, you start to outbrake, you had overlap, whatever, and you get to the apex, and instead of continuing to make an effort to make the pass work, or instead of driving the car hard, as soon as you get side by side and you can't see the car anymore, people who are newer, especially, like, I gotta know where that car is, and I want to either look at it or I want to go slower so that I'll hit it. And the reality is, if you only half commit to that pass, you're putting yourself in a risky situation
Hmm.
for a way extended period of time. And this is like major budget enduro, but it's somewhat common everywhere, where someone who's wanting to pass but then uncomfortable with driving their car, honestly, uh, or uncomfortable with the space, they don't complete the pass, and then you're just double awkward. Like, now I have to spend out more time here.
Yeah, when I first
Um,
started wheel to wheel racing, I just kind of assumed, and when I first started iRacing, which is really how I figured out how to race, I figured I was gonna have to know where those cars are at all times. And the cheat code for this, the way that it makes it way easier, is you don't have to know where the car is. You just have to leave it, and this is Tom's words here. You just have to leave it a place to exist. They will put their car in that place to exist. Why? Because it's the only place they can be, right? Like,
yep,
just leave them a place to exist, and you won't be just running into each other. So if you're the car on the
totally.
outside, you have to leave a place at the apex for them to exist. And if you're the car on the inside, you have to leave a place on exit for them to exist. And then, hey, you guys are racing and it looks great on stream, and you guys will have awesome videos of it like in the future, right?
Yeah, someone asked me about that once. I think it was my mom, which they asked about like the race starts when you see everybody fan out and it looks like they're like six wide and it looks like everybody's just in chaos. And they asked about like how scary that is. And I thought about it and I'm like, you're really only focused on like maybe two or three cars in those moments. Like in the camera shot from the TV, you see 50 cars or 30 cars or whatever, and it looks like chaos. But
Yeah.
when you're really in the car, you're not dealing with more than two or three of those cars at any given time. Um,
Do you have any
so
race
it's much
start?
more peaceful.
Do you have any race start advice? Because that could probably be like its
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
whole own topic, because race
It
starts are
could.
so crucial. But Yeah, go ahead, and I have some words of that I like to share with people on this.
Yeah, let's go into actual advice at this point. So into race starts, the main thing I want is I want a rough understanding of where the green's going to come out, whether they tell me in the driver's meeting or I watch other sessions. That's really good info to have. And I want to I almost always now start with my foot on the brake and as much throttle pedal as possible
Yep,
because I
same.
figured out that uh, you end up with a much more efficient start if you pull off the brake than to try to put throttle down. Because the throttle response and everything else, like if you just have throttle down and then pull off the brake, way faster. And ideally, without being too cheeky and cheaty, if you have like a 1 mile an hour closing speed on the car ahead of you, just so that you offset the reaction time of you pulling off the brake or going to throttle. Um,
Also, the person behind you is going to be doing
or
the
maybe
same thing.
advantage. Yeah, that's my race start. What do you do? Did I miss
So,
anything?
all of that, yep, all that. But what I find a lot is that people will not fill space that's available in front of them, and that puts them at risk. The safest place you can be is by filling space that's in front of you. Now, I'm not talking about the space that's like on the inside of the corner and it's totally going to disappear like turn one Gingerman. I'm not talking about that space. I'm talking like space in front of you where there's a lane for a car to exist. Allow your car on the brakes to get into that spot, fill that space. Because when you're not
Yep.
filling that space, you're making more variables possible of happening. Like the car that's stuck behind the other car might be able to change lanes in front of you, or maybe they misjudged it or whatever. But if you just fill the space, the car that would maybe change lanes can't. And guess what? You're probably also in front of that car that was
Yeah.
probably thinking of changing lanes to begin with in front of you. When everyone's really close together and everyone has filled the space, the incidents are if you do touch, it's going to be nothing because everyone's really close to each other. It's not like it's going to be any like big hits or anything like that. It might be some mirror fold and stuff like that, but nothing's big. Where it all of a sudden turns into a 40 car pileup or whatever, because like
Right.
yeah, it's so fill the space that's in front of you and ideally space that's not going to disappear. So like for example, like a pit road or something like that, that is space that will disappear. So if you're trying to fill space that's in a pit road that, you know, comes down on the grass and next thing you know, you're on the grass heading into turn 1 at Monza. Not that I've ever
Lime
done that
Rock,
before. Uh
PIR. Yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Yep. So space that is in front of you that will continue to exist. So probably like a lane that will you know, continue to be a lane. And if there's like paved runoff on the outside, I am way more likely to fill up space on the outside because then I have an out or something along those lines. So I'm thinking like turn 1 Barber, turn 1 Coda, stuff like that. And try to notice how many cars are stacked up in line in front of you because that will like accordion backwards. So if like let's say like the inside is like way better to have for this corner, but there's like 4 or 5 cars stacked in front of you and there's only one car on the outside, I'm just gonna like send the car in on the outside every time because I'm filling that space on the outside. And
Yeah.
everyone on the inside is gonna have to stack up on each other.
That happened at Mid Ohio once in GLTC. It pissed me off so much. It was race 4 and no one did anything wrong, but everybody wanted the inside going down into turn 4, turn 1 for the start. And the first person to get the red carpet rolled out was Jeremy Swenson, and he and I were battling for the weekend at that
Yeah.
point. So like he and I think we started maybe like ninth and 10th. And he was in third after like the third corner because he just had this giant outside lane just fill all the
Yep.
space up and get around everybody. And I was one of the ones stuck to the inside
Yeah.
and I needed to beat him. And you're like,
You're
oh,
like,
so I
dang it.
also, that's another good point. Before the start, I always try to study where the patterns are for like the first, wherever I'm at. If I'm on the front row, where is the pattern for where the advantage can be gained? If I'm in the second, third, fourth, fifth row, is there a pattern for what side of the track I want to be on in turn 1? And then I'll like actually make an effort to position myself there rather than pass cars sometimes because it's better to be set up for the better exit out of turn 1 or whatever it may be. Coda's a big one. Gingerman's one. There's patterns like you want to be on the X side of the track for a better advantage,
And then
and you can either play that out in your head or you can just watch some races and figure it out.
we have a cheeky stuff section, but I feel like this like fits into here. Is this literally this is what got me my first GLTC win because I was definitely not faster than Aaron or Eric at this moment in time, 2020 GLTC. And what I did is in practice, I rolled down the back straight like it was a race start, and then I hit the gas where like the green flag would come out, and then I hit the brakes where I thought I would hit the brakes for turn 4, and I found out it was like 100 feet too early. So later,
Mm,
when the race started, I just went 100 feet later than that, and it was the perfect amount of braking into turn 4, and I flew past everyone and was in the lead because
nice.
I
I
knew
want
where
to
to
go
brake.
rewatch that. Was that on stream?
The race 1 2020 Mid Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just fly by everyone. Everyone hit the brakes too
All right.
early. That's I
I want to
and
go watch that.
I practiced it in practice, so I knew exactly where I needed to hit the brakes.
Sure. All right. So we've talked about the right to racing room. I don't know why we said mistakes first, but then we waved the green flag. You're through turn one. The next thing we thought to talk about was like identifying strengths and weaknesses of the cars around you once you've settled into your pace a little bit. Um, this kind of fits here, but I've noticed a lot with working with newer wheel to wheel drivers that they tend to get really fixated on making passes on the inside, regardless of what their car can do, regardless of who they're racing against, whatever. There's something about like, I'm going to go for a pass being equivalent to like, I have to pass on the inside for some newer drivers and getting them to break that mentality that they're so fixated on only being able to pass on the inside. Um, is tough but freeing as at the same time because then they're like, oh, I can carry a ton of speed around the outside there, or it completely opens up the options for making momentum on people, other than just being locked into that mentality of trying to get up the inside on somebody on entry.
The the advantage for trying to pass somebody on the outside is you're still braking in like the same lane that you normally would brake in, but because we want to leave that space that's on the inside, we can break a little bit later and purposely miss the apex. Because when we purposely miss the apex by braking a little bit later than we normally would, we're going to leave that space and our car is still at the limit. The person on the inside, they have to make a much harder adjustment. They have to brake a little bit earlier because they don't have the full radius of the corner. They'll have the advantage being on the inside, but that's negated by if the car on the outside is able to keep the car at the limit of adhesion by just adjusting the brake distance. And I'm not saying like it's a whole board, it's like a car length later. Think about it, like however much later you brake, that's going to create whatever distance you brake later. It's the same distance that's going to be at apex, right? So if the corner's like super dialed in, and let's say you're braking at the 3 board, you front bumper at the 3 board, right? That's where I'm braking, and I barely get the car down to apex every time, and then I use the throttle and I shove the car to the outside of the racetrack, right? And that's normally how I do that when I'm not around people. If I'm on the outside of somebody and I normally brake at the 3 board, if I brake at the 3 board at my door, that's about a car width. I still try to bend the car, with the trail braking, trying to pull the nose of the car in with the brakes to the apex. I'm going to miss the apex, but I have left that car a space for it to exist, and my car was at the limit of adhesion. It's a much harder job for the car on the inside to do the same thing, to have the car like twisted down to the apex at the limit of adhesion on the inside because they don't have that like the most consistent information. Now that being said, if you're the car on the inside and you're going down to the apex, I think you basically brake in the same spot. You just have to like hold the brake a little bit longer, or you delay when you get on throttle.
Yep. Yeah. The other common thing I see with people trying to earn right to racing room to make a pass is not buying space in front of them that would be appropriate for them to be able to actually make a pass, and that usually materializes on the exit of a corner. I'll say that better. So
Yeah, say
they
that
don't
again.
they don't remember to they don't remember to leave themselves some space to use the momentum where they might be able to close up at a key spot to actually create overlap. They'll drive right behind the car in front and let that car dictate their speed, and it doesn't give you any opportunity to create a run or build a run on anything. Does that make sense? I know I'm
No,
not
that
describing this
no, no, no,
properly. I don't
that
know
makes
why I'm
sense.
struggling,
So
but
basically, an example would be like, let's say you're getting every time you're trying to leave this corner, like you're right on this person's bumper, you're doing a great job. You're looking completely through the car, you're able to drive really close to them, right? And that's going to open up opportunities. and the opportunity that you keep thinking that you're going to have, but it just never like happens the way that it needs to for you to get like meaningful overlap for the next corner is you're on power, but like their car's in the way. So like you can't do anything
Yeah.
with the run, right? So what Tom's saying is you actually intentionally leave yourself like a half a car length or like a car length, whatever's appropriate for the amount of run you would have. And then that
Yeah.
will leave some space for you to actually use that run through the corner where that car's not getting in your way of the run. And sometimes people will be bandwidth limited where they're not realizing the strength that they have. And basically, Tom, what you're saying is notice when that's happening because that's going to allow you that like you have an advantage in that particular spot for whatever reason, and by giving yourself a little space, that's the way you actually get to use that advantage. If the car's in the way, then you don't get to use the advantage.
Yeah. It almost always starts with I'm gaining on him really a ton there, or I'm always underneath him there. The spot I think about is like a sequence of corners where the last corner is the obviously the last corner onto a straightaway or something, and someone will be faster in all of those sequence of corners, and they'll use that to get right up underneath that car before the long straight, and then they'll just come out, in perfect lockstep and have no overlap, no opportunity to make a pass. It's just poor offense. If you use time in those corners to set up that gap to be perfectly so that you carry your normal speed through rather than carrying your normal speed two corners before, you carry it, you kind of back that down, you build yourself a little bit of space, and then you use your momentum at the appropriate time to create an opportunity. I would say that's like kind of the big mystery that newer drivers struggle with, or people who don't see the racecraft quite clearly yet
Yeah. Or it could be like a
as the
and
passing car.
and you let me know if I lose everyone on this, Tom. Um it could be something as simple as you are like let's say you're faster through the series of corners. Maybe you like over exaggerate how much you're setting up on each corner to like keep that compounding set up so you get a better run out of the last corner. Maybe it's slower
Yep.
overall for the lap time, but what it's doing is it's allowing you to use your strength in that area to actually get a run on that car that is slower in those series of corners than you would be otherwise.
Yep. This generally implies you have the handling car in the exchange, or you're dealing with a driver that has one weak spot. Okay. Anywhere else on a as you're the attacking car, if you're on the offense, tips for creating overlap, for creating passes?
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of the stuff we put down is also more defense stuff
um yeah, I
in
mean
that
that
strengths
would
and
have that
weaknesses.
would have probably been the better way to organize the topic, Tom, is if we did offense and defense.
We'll do it live. It's okay.
Uh, but in terms of just offense, I think it's close. It's important to be close to the car in front of you, but the way you do that is by looking through the car. Like you need to be close enough where a bobble causes you to be able to launch the attack. Now, the biggest thing that if you take away one thing from this whole podcast, I hope it's this. And it's the pass doesn't need to be started and finished in a single corner.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes you start it in this corner, that messes them up for the next corner. Then you get a run. Now you're overlapped. So on the third corner of this exchange, now you're side by side. And now it's up to you to like execute the side by side better than that other person. And then maybe you did execute it better and now you've completed the pass, or they do it the same and now you're still side by side and it goes into the next corner and the next corner and the next corner. And that's where like the legendary racing starts. But very, very rarely is the pass started and finished in just a single corner. Unless the other person made like a big mistake. But generally, that's not how that works. And I see way too often where people are trying to like hurry that along uh, instead of just like letting it like the game play out, however it's going to play out, and that will lead into them forcing a mistake on their own behalf that didn't need to happen because they didn't realize it's like yeah I can start the engagement here, but it doesn't need to finish until like way up here.
Yeah. Andy in the chat said backing off to get the pass always feels counterintuitive, but it also feels like so big brain and smart when you make it work.
It does.
But I get what you mean. Yeah, you just have to trust that if you're always catching him in that spot, if you back off a little bit, you're going to catch him again anyway. On the defense side of stuff, I think that relates to what I was going to say.
I have one more
That going
offense.
back to what you just said. Go ahead.
I have one more offense. Sometimes you can poke a nose in a spot that you probably shouldn't put the nose, but as long as like if they take that apex, you just like park yourself and like you just get a bad run, then like no harm, no foul, right? Like maybe you like put the nose where you shouldn't, but you didn't put the nose where you shouldn't and didn't leave an exit plan. But
Yeah.
you're just trying to rattle them. You're just trying to get their heart rate up. You're trying to like limit their bandwidth. Like it's a little bit of a mental exchange. Like if you can get the driver a little bit um like where their bandwidth is being tested and limited and their heart rate goes up, then they're way more likely to get a mistake. If you're just kind of trailing around like being super predictable and just sitting behind them, just just riding in their wheel tracks, it's going to be a little less stressful for that driver. But if you start like poking out on the straights and popping back in and moving around and doing like also if you look a little crazy, then at least you're using like a little bit of bandwidth on them, but don't put your nose in some place where if they do take the apex and like if you shouldn't probably have your nose in there to begin with, you need to have an exit plan. So I'll
Yeah.
do that sometimes where I'll like put my nose somewhere and I'm like, and then Tom doesn't fall for this at all. I think he's onto my shit. Like if I put my nose in on Tom, he's just like, I'm just gonna turn in, and I'm like, okay, and then I just get a bad run, and then like I'm a couple car lengths behind where I would have
Yeah.
been otherwise, and I'm like, crap, like I didn't. That's not gonna work on Tom, but it works on other people.
Yeah. You never had me. No, you're right. You can make little pokes and prods, and as long as you have an out, you never interrupt them or hit them. Totally fair.
It's
Um,
honestly it's so fun because it's the offense is so flexible and like you're the attacker and you have
yeah.
all this leeway and flexibility to play the game and really and the more you play the game, the more you're interacted in the game. Um the better you're going to get at it. And honestly that's the beauty of GLTC is because every race you're racing people. Um because all the cars are like relatively close together, any kind of like spec racing that's like a huge numbered whatever. If the wheel to wheel racing you're doing is only like six people and sometimes it just turns into an HPDE, you're missing out on so much of that wheel to wheel practice because that fight is that's a learned skill and you get better at it over time.
Yeah. On the defense side, I think the my note about when you're on the offense, limiting yourself to the inside as your place to try to pass. The biggest mistake on the flip side is when someone tries to make a pass, not committing to driving your car at 10 tenths and like adjusting to driving offline as fast as you can. We going back to when you say like someone's poking the nose or someone's showing that they're going to try a move that you don't even think is going to work or whatever. Your defensive mentality should immediately switch to I'm going to go as fast as possible through this corner while leaving them space. Like I can roll off the brake a little sooner and carry a little more entry speed. I can be on throttle even a little bit later because I know that I'm going to be in their way at that point. Like they
Hmm.
can't track out if I'm still there. So committing to being offline and driving the car as hard as you can to its physical and like momentum, grip limit, whatever. When you get attacked like that, or when someone's on the offense for you, I think people are uncomfortable with being attacked a little bit. So like if it's a move that is looking like it's going to work, they'll just kind of let it happen a little bit and then try to figure out how to pass back rather than really committing to driving the car as hard as they've been driving the car offline and maintaining position. You
Yeah,
agree with that?
when it comes to the defense thing, I think we said it toward the beginning, but honestly, the best defense is just executing the best laps that you can. That's going to be the best defense. But if you get like, let's say you get like a bad exit out of a corner, you can. I think this is somewhere in here. Yeah, it's blocking slash like move and response kind of thing. This is not blocking, but if you're just like, I'm going to move my car to the middle of the racetrack. So if they want to go on the inside, they're going to have a terrible radius in the next corner. And if they want to go to the outside, at least I'll have like the preferred section on the because like if you have positive overlap and you're on the inside, by the time you get to the apex, a lot of the times, depending on how much overlap they have, you could probably just get on power and you'll just clear them. Um, and then that pass isn't going to happen. And what I mean is like they only have like a foot of overlap on the outside, and by you getting on power, you actually like you clear that foot of overlap as you like cross over to the plane that their car is existing in. Um, and that can only really happen on the inside. Now, if they have positive overlap when they get to the apex, so meaning they're like slightly in front of you when by the time you get to the apex, then obviously you can't just power out like into them, right? Like, because you're gonna be like running into their door. Um, Back to that like leave a space to exist thing. Uh, but you can adjust how the fight is going to happen. Um, like if you leave the corner and you're like, ah, they have a run on me, you can make that move preemptively. The problem is if they make a move and then you move to be like, no, 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 you're not. I don't want you over there. You have to do it before they move, because if you do it after, then that's really bad. If you do it on the breaks, then you probably need to go find another hobby because that's wildly dangerous.
Yeah, fix your attitude. No, that was our next note is like defending when you know you're slower. Say they get a run, or you're just a little slower in a straight, maybe. Uh, you have to play out the next corner ahead, just like the green flag. Where is it more likely for the car to come out ahead? Is it outside, inside? Is it maybe the inside car or the outside car, whichever one's ahead at the break point? Let's say will tend to be the one further ahead. That tends to be the case, like the end of the back straight at Mid Ohio, even 10A and 10B at Road Atlanta. It's more like whichever car's kind of ahead at turn in. It's not so much the braking itself. Um, Playing out or practicing that scenario while you're on track and understanding where those patterns show up on the racetrack will help you choose where to defend without blocking so that you position your car in a place that makes their life as hard as possible. Meaning, you get a bad run out of the keyhole. I know that I want to be on the, uh, let's say your car's better on the brakes. I may not defend to the inside. I may let them have the inside because I know that if I'm ahead through the braking zone and I'm able to turn in and carry the outside at turn four, then I'm still going to stay ahead. Versus other tracks, I may preemptively move to the inside and make them have to take the side that I don't want.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
I think that's all pattern recognition, really.
yeah, it really is. A something cheeky that I don't think I'm gonna describe well, so you just let me know if I should just, like, abandon this, is instead of just driving down the straight and you're like, "And I'm gonna pick the middle lane," um, what I'll do is I'll angle diagonally at, like, the area that I don't want them to go into, and I will have this, like, slow meandering into that spot as we, like, go down the straightaway. So, what I want to happen is for them to go, I'm gonna go here. And I want them to fall in love with that like idea. Like, oh, I'm totally gonna I'm getting them. I'm gonna have overlap by the time we get to the brakes, and I'm gonna go on the outside or the inside or wherever. And I angle my car to be diagonally to be slowly taking up that space that I know that they want. And then as we get to that spot, it starts to not be a great idea, not be a great idea. And then before we get like on the brakes, they're like, shit, that spot doesn't exist anymore. And they didn't have time to think about another option. And now we're just on the brakes.
Yeah, yeah, you can manipulate a lot. So our next thing was about out of class passing, especially dealing with being lapped. Um, that's a trick for that. Where if you're the slower car, you can manipulate a lot of what's going on behind you just with the body language of the car and the
Yeah.
direction. Like you can either put someone where you want them, or you can force them to have to go, whether it's on offense or defensive play. Um,
You don't want them to have to react to you though. If you're the slower car.
right. So let's get into that then. So if you're, especially if you're multi-class or if you're just sharing the track with people, like I am not a fan of inter-class inter-class like battling to interrupt people. Some people don't really care, I guess. But for me, if I am on multi-class and it's an out-of-class car, I'm communicating my intentions literally so early that they can't. They have zero reason to think that I'm doing anything else. They have no option but to go where I told them to go. That includes moving to the middle of the straightaway. That includes moving to the inside of the track. That includes lifting on straightaways. That includes uh, basically making sure that passes always happen on straightaways so that I don't get hindered in corners.
Yeah. Also,
And that's going to be my intention. So if I'm going to do that to them, I'm not going to do it to them at the end of the straightaway. I'm going to show them that's what I'm doing at the beginning, and then they're just going to have to deal with it. And basically, I mean, in years and years and years and years of WRL where I'm the slower car, there haven't been more than a couple dozen passes that I haven't picked when they happen where they happen. Maybe. in hours and hours and hours of racing because that's just the mentality that I try to have.
And when you're the slower car and it's multi-class, you kind of have to understand like, oh, if that car gets stuck behind me here, they're going to lose a ton of time, and they're probably going to have just a little bit of overlap by the time we get to this thing. They're going to go for it, right? Like
Yeah,
it's, you know what? In that instance, I just have to lift because that's going to lose me less time than some awkward exchange at that corner, because I know like the calculus that's going inside that driver's head right now is that they're not going to wait, and they're going to feel like
yeah.
they need to pass me in this corner, and I should facilitate that because like any kind of awkwardness is taking time away from my race, especially like an endurance race where like in the grand scheme of things you're just trying to be as efficient as possible with traffic and just any car on car interactions on the track. Now that doesn't mean that you're like a pushover, because that is unpredictable, right? Like if they're not going to have overlap by the time you get to the corner, then you turn into the corner, right? And you hustle that slow little car through that corner, and then they're the faster car. They got to figure out like the optimal place to get around you. But when you see that pass is inevitable, and they're going to have that overlap before turn in, then it's you need to figure out the way that's best that impacts the least amount of lap time.
Or even if you think it's possible, like plausible, for the most part, especially when you're dealing with amateur endurance stuff. If you like, the faster car is always going to go for it. The faster pre that it that excuse me, the slower cars make time by facilitating passes easily for themselves. The faster cars make time by going for every single move all the time. If you just stop going for passes because it's close, you're probably just going to end up slow as the faster car. So, do you agree with that? Like if you're
Yeah,
the faster class, the way you make time is by, for the most part, like always going for the pass.
there's like a risk reward though, because sometimes you see the faster cars and you're like is I've seen this a lot in iRacing where like you're following somebody and it's just like, oh my god, I can't believe they went for that, but it worked out for them, and then 3 hours later they're crashed, and it's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
yeah, like we could have seen that happen. Like you have to do like the like what's going to last, whatever the duration of the race is.
Yep. Um, we already covered like blocking. Blocking. Actually, let's talk about blocking because some people get confused about what it is. There's even some confusion these like up to this day in GLTC. What is blocking and what it's allowed? Uh, a blocking is a move in response. So if you didn't have the idea first and you have the idea second because they did the idea first,
Yeah.
no, that's not how that works. It's literally the first time. It's not like you move and then they move and then you move back.
Yeah.
Like, or like all of that is, but I moved, or actually a better example is, let me slow down. They move first, you move second, and then they move third. That fourth move is not your first move. Your first move is it's the first move. There's no debate about what the first move is. If you move in response, it's a block.
Now, if you go down the straight, you cover the inside, you figure out that they don't have the run that you thought they were, and then you pull back onto the racing line to take the corner, like to take
Wait,
the
say it
full
again.
radius of the corner. Like basically, you come out of the corner, you're like, crap, they're gonna have a run, so you like move to the middle of the track to make their life difficult. As you're going down the straightaway, you're like, actually, we're not gonna have overlap by the time we're on the brakes, and then you move back into the racing line.
If they're just not there, that's fine. Otherwise, you have to move back all but one car length.
Yeah. But if they're
Like if
not,
they're
yeah,
all,
I'm saying
if
they're
you're
not
not,
there. They're not there.
if they're just not there, well, it depends. If they're not there by like a millimeter and you clear them and then hit the
And then
brakes
hit
and
the
you get
brakes.
ass back,
Yeah.
yeah, like then that's bad call on your part.
Yeah.
Not really their fault that you like move back in front of them
And then
and then like
instantly hit
bomb
the
onto the
brakes.
brakes.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't know where this falls into our rubric, but you can't jump in front of somebody and jam the brakes. They're not superhuman. Like they have reaction times and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying if they have no overlap back to like you thought they were going to be alongside, but they're still two car lengths back, then
Like they
yeah,
miss
move
a
over.
shift or something.
But if they're even like reasonably where they might have been thinking, like you put them on your left, you put them on your outside, and then you decide last minute you're going to close it, you can only close it up to the car length
Yep.
for them to exist.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
But I mean, unless you're in like that really, really cutthroat pro racing, and if you are, congratulations. uh, tell me what race I can come cheer for you at.
Well, and so, uh,
'Cause it's a little different in, like, IMSA wheel to wheel then.
yeah, IMSA wheel to wheel is you leave a place for that car to exist minus an inch. Like that's IMSA wheel to wheel. If you want to see exactly what I'm talking about, look at the pass in the GT4 race at Mid Ohio this weekend that Daniel Morad did on I think it was a Cayman. That's like IMSA because the Cayman gave him a width of a car minus an inch, and Morad's like, I can make this work.
Yeah, so he moved him he, like, basically followed the rear bumper contour up the Cayman's backside with his front bumper with contact and, like, moved him just ever so slightly and then, like, filled in up underneath him and got the run
Yeah,
out.
that's pro racing. That's not what we're talking about.
That was also still, like, a eye for an eye in IMSA pro racing rules, where it's like, they're not gonna assign incident responsibility, but they might get you back.
Yeah, like maybe if they get the same opportunity, they will definitely do the same thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that's kind of
Um,
how NASCAR works, though, isn't it? Like it's like if you
yeah,
bump somebody out of the way, you better be the faster car because if they get back to you, you can guarantee that they're also going to bump you out of the way.
yeah.
But that's not what we're talking
IMSA's a
about.
little softer. No, no, no. I'm assuming everyone listening to this is doing some version of budget endurance, club racing, SCCA, NASA, grid life, something like that. That you're not thinking about like stabbing your friend in the back and twisting the knife so they go off track and you gain the position.
Unless it's iRacing, I do that all
Ah,
the time.
or iRacing. Yeah, I do too. Okay, so any other things about before we talk about how you can practice it? Before we touch on that?
I think I think we basically covered. Is there anything on defense that we feel like we left out?
I have one under my cheeky stuff, but it kind of goes into when if you're just faster on the straights and slower in the corners, up to a point you can be in the way. If you're just driving your race, but there are sequences. Actually, this is a perfect example. GLTC race one this past weekend. It was Eric Magnuson and Eric Catil, and Magnuson was clearly not understanding the first half of the race that he was. No, that's not fair to say. He was trying harder and harder to stay out front. He was in the lead. Eric was in second. Catil, and he was getting more and more ragged through like turns 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9. He was just getting more and more behind or a little bit flustered. And uh, uh, the first time Eric got a little bit alongside, Coutinho got a little alongside Magnuson and couldn't complete the pass. The next time Magnuson got even further behind, and then Eric really got alongside of him, and Coutinho was fully alongside and still couldn't quite complete the pass. The next lap, Magnuson like clearly just stayed in the way through that whole section, and Coutinho couldn't get alongside him anywhere. And then Magnuson used his power down the back straight to build the gap again. But you could see the switch. It was like halfway through the race, he stopped trying so hard in the sections where it didn't really matter and just like put the car in the way. That is so smart if you just have straight line speed advantage.
I mean, that's basically what I did to you in the second GLTC when I have at Mid Ohio. Is I knew it's purely just because Mid Ohio is a very tough track to race on. I'm like, if I don't make any huge mistakes on either turn one or keyhole, like there's really nowhere for Tom to pass me here.
Yeah.
Like he can't really force anything. Like it's just there's nowhere for him to pass me. So if I have a good run out of one and I have a good run out of keyhole, like we're good, right? So like that was like my whole lap was just get a good float through one and a good run out of keyhole, and I just have to execute like that those two things like five more times, and here we go. Woo!
Yep.
Race win, right? So like try to understand uh the track that you're at too, and don't have any unnecessary mistakes in places where the only way they can pass you is by you having a mistake. If you just
Yeah.
drive it,
Actually, great point.
yeah, if you just drive it 99% of what the car could do, and you could do that forever for a million years, and there's no way they can pass you there, then do that. There's no reason to take an unnecessary risk with like eking out those last like hundredths in spots where it doesn't matter.
It's another good assessment you can do over time, especially if you have a lot of the same tracks in your repertoire or in your schedules, is picking out those like high, well, let's call them high risk, low risk places where there's a whole sequence of corners that are super low risk for getting passed in, so they're really low pressure, and that should just back your like your risk taking and your pressure on yourself for getting those corners to be like 10 out of 10. But if it boils down to like DJ's example, there's two corners on this track that if I don't nail, I'm going to get passed. But if I nail them, the rest of the track doesn't matter. that also will hone in your bandwidth on your ability to execute those corners and like let the rest of the lap be what it needs to be
And then
without too much pressure.
adding to this, if you have any kind of say on the drivability of the car, so I'm talking car setup, have the car the best in the areas where you can pass. Don't have like
Yeah,
if the lap time's going to be the same, but this makes you faster in the section that you can actually pass at, do that. That's the obvious move to do.
right. Yeah, good one. Good point. All right, so practicing.
So how do you get better at all of this?
So I think that that pattern. What did I say? What was the word I used? Pattern recognition. I think pattern recognition is like a massive thing for racecraft, and I practice. I'm like I can't help my brain to be this way. It just is this way. I'm like trying to pay attention for patterns to gain advantages everywhere all the time, specifically in the car, specifically around other cars on the highway, on the roads, the route that I'm going to choose to go, the lanes that I'm going to pick down the highway. I can tell you at this point that the right lane is always fastest up to an off ramp. And then the time between the off ramp and the on ramp is when you move over because there's the fewest cars there. And then the cars coming on, it's going to slow down the right lane. So this left, then you go over to the left lane. And I'll do like driving to high school as a kid, I was driving like 15 miles down the highway. And I knew the exact pattern that I could like follow which lane was when so that I could get to school as efficiently as possible. That's too obsessive, but I think paying attention to patterns like that around you, specifically behind the wheel, will make it so that you're just default looking for that stuff more often.
Yeah, because what we're looking to do is we're looking to be we want to turn this like awareness of what's happening around us in terms of like the relationship of you and the other cars. We want to turn this into a subconscious executable because we don't want to have to focus on this too much because there's so many other things to focus on, right? So what we want to do is we want to like you can use your public driving that you're driving, uh, abiding all the laws, of course. But you can what you can do is you can try to expand the bandwidth and your recognition of all these cars around you. So you have this like radar. And now that's something that we were like told to do when we were 16 and like trying to figure out how to drive. And at some point, like a base level of understanding of where the cars are around us is sufficient to get from point A to point B. But what Tom's saying is take it to the next level on the street, even though it's not necessary, because what that does is it builds a subconscious executable program that will live in your brain that will be tapped into when you are wheel to wheel racing. So take this like awareness of the cars and the flow and the road and what lane is ending and what's not ending and how the cars generally interact with that stuff. Turn that into the way you are just driving when you're behind the wheel. This like extended awareness of everything happening around you. You can build this on the street.
Yeah. The other thing that I think helps on the street within very safe following distances is not default to reacting to everything that happens. Try to figure out the allowances or the tolerances that you have sometimes. If this is something that you struggle with, specifically if you struggle with target fixation or if you're struggling with staying close to other cars or like creating opportunities to pass, I would say that that's very similar to being on the highway and seeing some brake lights pop on somewhere between 10 car lengths and a quarter mile up the road. You're trained to react to that basically. You're either going to lift or brake, but I think delaying that gut reaction to then see what plays out, especially if you drive a manual or if you have a lot of like engine decel in the car when you lift, try to like break the pattern of like reacting to that stuff so abruptly and let yourself be comfortable with the space that's ahead of your car. Let yourself be comfortable rolling up on somebody within again, like I'm not talking like tailgate the shit out of them. I'm talking like the truck 5 car lengths up, like they hit the brakes because they're the car in front of them hit the brakes, but none of them are actually braking. They're just like bad drivers.
Everyone's just turning on their brake lights.
Yeah, the brake lights all come on, but no one's actually doing anything different. If you just lift and your car does a little engine braking, and then you just set your foot right back on the throttle, you scrub 2 miles an hour just like they did, and you use a little bit of the space in front of you as your like other resource. You didn't use your brakes, you used the distance instead. I think that those types of things, I don't have any practical like proof of making somebody practice this and it being better for them, but
We would love to hear your feedback.
I feel like that's really an important thing to break is being so reactive to things in front of you. And it's twofold. You're not reacting to everything in front of you, but it also builds this comfort with using the space of the car in front of you so that at a race start and the whole lane's clear of you, you're just filling the space or like whatever it may be. I see these things as very equivalent. Um, so I don't know if that's helpful to think about, but it is for me anyway.
Basically, just force yourself to take in more information than you normally do when you're just driving point A to point B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Um,
What about off the road?
uh, Carts are great for this because it's such low consequences, and you get to see that like ebb and flow of like that battle engaging. And also carts just like fight each other really well. Like if you get two like equally skilled, like speed carts, like the way that they kind of like fight each other is like super good. So like basically what I would recommend, because you're gonna go out to like some rental cart place or whatever, and none of the carts are gonna be the same. What I would do is like a pit party. You and a couple friends, you all go, and if somebody's in the lead for more than 2 laps, they drop to the back, and then they have to like fight their way like through everyone else. And then if that person that is in the lead that time, they're like they have to like go to the back, and they have to go to the back, and this keeps like the group together. And you're not just like doing laps, just driving around, just like, trying to like set the lap record at this like rental go-kart place, just driving around by yourself. You're like actively fighting with your friends. Now, don't be running into each other. You'll get kicked out. And if you get kicked out, that's not going to be really great practice. But by like actively practicing, the thing that you can get the most out of driving these carts, these like rental carts, is like the wheel to wheel interaction. So you can do like a pit party, and if you happen to have the fast cart, then go you. But you lead like the 1 or 2 laps or whatever you and your group decide, and then you file back and you just keep racing. You just keep racing each other for the 10 minutes that you're allowed out there.
I've never thought to set that sort of deal like going into a session. My experience with karting is it's actually not good racecraft because they just follow each other around and the tracks are always all flat out.
That's
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so. This is obviously if you have like the appropriate facilities near you. Like I'm thinking like
Sure.
a I don't know what it's called now, but like whatever GoPro Motorplex is called, or that place that I went for Ito's bachelor party. They had like
Cart to
really
cart?
really no, I
Oh,
forget what
in
it's called.
Indianapolis.
Yeah, what was that? It's a really like a hot premier kart track.
Two-story one?
No, 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 it was outdoors. I'm thinking outdoor places. Indoor places are a little too cramped to like actually.
Okay, thank you for clarifying because I was thinking indoor karting. My experience with indoor karting is it's crappy racing.
It's too
But
tight. You're just setting lap times in
yeah,
indoor karting, but like on the outdoor places with the rental carts, that's what I'm saying. Like they're all going to be different speeds. Like I remember I did
go to
a
Newcastle?
yeah, it was Newcastle. That's what it was. Yeah. So like if you have like one of these cart places near you, like grab a couple buddies or whatever and just like go to the kart track and just fight each other, because you'll get 10 minutes of like super good practice and come up with some kind of arrangement beforehand to like actively work on the racing stuff, and it's way more fun than just cutting laps.
Yeah, I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. I was gonna say if you didn't clarify outdoor or like spacious tracks, I think sim racing is exponentially better practice than karting. Um,
Well, I
because of the constant ability to do as much racing as you want
Yes, and you're going
against other
against
real people.
yeah, and you're going against people your similar skill level as well, assuming that like you're like there's so many people doing it that the chances that you're going to have somebody that's like similar pace to you is like really high. And
Yeah.
like I said earlier, with like the thing that's good about like GLTC or like big classes, where all the cars are like similar, is that you get to engage in that racing a lot, right? And so that it's only when the gloves come off is when you actually get to work on that racecraft stuff. And there's a lot of race series out there where you like maybe it's a fight like for the first lap or two, so like you got like a little bit of experience, and then the rest of the session you're just kind of driving around, and they'll have like 2 races for like the weekend. And so you got the like wheel to wheel race for like 4 laps. You see this at the runoffs all the time, Tom. You'll see all these people, they show up, and now all of a sudden there's a huge class. And normally when they're doing their like regional races and whatever, like there's not like these big classes. And you'll see like these classes that are like a little less subscribed, you'll see that the racecraft suffers because they spent the whole year not racing anybody basically. And now all of a sudden they're
Yeah.
racing, and you'll see that the racecraft is not like at the same level as like the Formula V's or the Spec Miatas or like these big classes where like regionally they have people to race against. So you can literally see it. You'll see the people that get to work on the racecraft all the time, and the people that are just lapping by themselves when they go to like their regional or like the major or whatever that's near them.
Yep. And that's where I think the practice comes in. If you're not getting high quality practice with your chosen form of competition on the racetrack, you like your car and the competition's not that high, you're not fully prepped yet, whatever subscription is low in your area. I think you really have to double down on the idea of sim racing with a schedule. Maybe making a couple trips with your buddies to a local kart track at least once a year. I don't know, a couple times a year if you're really not getting quality racing, because otherwise you're totally right. You just kind of flounder when you get to the point of needing to race.
Yeah, it's just not a practice skill, and definitely a skill that's built. It's not like you just have this inherent ability to racecraft. Like it's a learned skill that you have to figure out. And I think sim racing is the best way. But you know what? Not everyone can sim race. I still think like Gran Turismo or Forza would still be like good enough for
Yeah.
like some kind of basic racecraft, because you can park them on exit, you have overlap or whatever. Like if you're doing some kind of league. Now let's most like public lobbies are probably not the place to be learning this racecraft or stuff, but like you can find groups of people that like have leagues or whatever. So like you don't even need to have like a expensive sim racing setup to like work on this. Though if you're racing wheel to wheel, like come on, like my guy, you can afford a sim rig. Like it's like you're cutting yourself short by not just spending that money on this tool that like allows you to do this racing forever. But then even in the sim, pick series and cars and things where you're actively racing against people. Don't be the guy in the production car challenge picking the Renault when there's no other Renaults. Don't be the guy driving around by yourself. You're just wasting your time. Everyone knows that
Yep.
guy.
Who is that guy?
There's that guy in every race. I don't know why.
You know who's a Clio guy? You know who it is?
Oh, who's a Clio guy?
Luke McGrew
No.
loves those cars. He loves them.
No, he
Yeah.
doesn't.
He
There's no
does. He
way.
does.
No, what? Where did you hear this information?
He likes to play with some of the winning formula guys that I've raced with a little bit. And he's always like, let's do the Clio. And everyone else is like, shut up, Luke. Your opinion
Okay.
sucks.
I'm
Kidding.
gonna go out on a limb and guarantee that Luke has never just joined a production car challenge race and drove the
Oh,
Clio around by himself.
yeah, I doubt it.
Yeah, okay.
Uh, do you have any other cheeky stuff you want to end on?
Ooh, the cheekiest cheeky thing is Kenton Cook uh did this to me multiple times, and it took a little while to figure out. But on two cars that draft, so like basically the second place car is just kind of like sitting there like waiting for like the back straight or whatever to like finally pass the car on the last lap or whatever. Kenton would do this thing where he would park it. And basically, when the other car was like, had nowhere to go other than just into like the rear bumper of this car, not like a wreck, but like a doof, like a bump, that's when he would get on throttle and he would position his car perfectly to be like where the meeting up point was like at apex. So the car behind didn't get any kind of run. If anything, you gave them like a shove, they get the better run. And then also you're so close to each other that the like you don't get any kind of run from the draft and you pop out and everything's just equalized because you're like stacked on top of each other. You don't get any kind of run, and it's a way to nullify like that draft like on the back straight on the last lap. And I Kenton did it to me in a sim race, and he was laughing about it, and I was asking him like, "Oh, what did you do? Like what did you look at? Like how did you execute that?" And then he showed me a video of him doing that in real life at Mosport in MX5 Cup cars, and it literally looked exactly the same as what he did to me. And I would like to say that I'm like, oh, cool. Now I know how to do that. And I like did it the very next time. Oh, I completely screwed it up. I like waited too long. They just drove by me and I'm like, oh crap. And then they like just went off and won the race. And they asked like, what happened? Did you miss a shift? And I'm like, no, I was trying to do cheeky stuff, but like I failed at it. So like it took a
Yep.
couple times to like get good at it. But now because I practiced it, it's a thing that I can do where I can like purposely get in the way in a way where I like nullify whatever advantage they would have by being in second.
You know that horrible, awful video of me losing the drag race in the B-Spec car at Laguna Seca to the Mazda 2? You know the
Yeah.
video I'm talking about?
Yep.
That's what happened.
You
I
tried
was
to
like
you
I
tried to
was
be
like, "I'm gonna
cheeky?
back him up so that he can't get a run," and I botched it so hard because I hadn't really done it before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and he
harder than
just
it looks. Kenton made it look so easy. And the first time I tried it, like the guy literally just drove right by me and I was like, God dang
yeah, yeah.
it.
I think I've shared pretty much all my cheeky stuff. I think the race start stuff is most of my cheekiness,
Y-
without being illegal.
yeah, I think
And then, yeah, like parking it in the way every once in a while. I'm pretty good at like, I've actually gotten really good at it because in iRacing, I'm not always the fastest, but my racecraft and my race starts are usually pretty strong.
Tom's
So
very
I end
hard to
up in front of
pass.
people. Yeah, so I end up in front of people I'm slower than, and I have to make myself hard to pass. Um, and just I think just focusing on exits is mainly how I do that. But I'm not great at it. I still crash all the time.
Uh, I think I think the cheeky stuff that's real cheeky is the stuff that you think of in the moment. And this goes back to like thinking about the strengths and weaknesses against like your competitors. Like if it's almost like I'm gonna use an analogy that's gonna lose like 80% of the audience. But if you're like playing a fighting game and you notice that they're doing something and you're like, ooh, I'm gonna be able to use that. Like whatever that thing is that they're doing, I'm gonna use that against them. And at some point you use it against them when it matters most. I don't know what that thing is, but like that's what I'm talking about with this bandwidth thing cuz you're playing a game, right? And the game is the wheel to wheel racing. And if there's something that you notice that the other driver's doing that you can use against them in whatever way, like save it for when it's most impactful. So you get the advantage. Like come up with your own cheeky stuff.
Yep.
And
And then
then
tell us about
and then tell us about it
it.
because it's always great. I'm trying to think like the last like cheeky like the thing is like when you do these things like in the moment you feel like a hero and then like a week later you're like I don't even remember doing that.
Yeah, kinda.
Yeah.
They're always more specific. I guess it's funny we put a whole topic of it, and we're like, "Well, what do we actually do?"
It's
Or a whole
just
bullet point of it.
but it's just like little advantages that you have like for example in like draft racing I'm thinking like specifically like the MX5s and iRacing. I would notoriously play really nice with people that I knew I was faster than, so they would work with me. I would keep that person like for instance, Tom, yesterday we were racing and Diego was faster than you, right? In on when we were racing and you got side by side. I gave you the draft because it's more beneficial for me for you to be directly behind me and not Diego, right?
Great one. Actually, I use that all the time. Yes. Paying attention to what's happening behind you or what's around you and, like, giving the person that is beneficial for you the advantage.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a
So,
really good one.
and then like with draft racing and stuff like that, a lot of the times, if maybe you don't want to pass the first person in front of you, but if you like half-heartedly attack them, then the person behind you is like waiting to like gather up like whatever happened, but nothing happened. And then they just wasted a lap where they maybe could have fought you for second because they thought, ooh, something's happening in front of me. And then nothing happens. Like all these like little mind games and stuff are being like played all the time. And it's up for you to discover what those mind games are. And that's the beauty of wheel racing. And that's what makes it so much fun.
The other thing I do sometimes, this is my last one, that I know I've done, is I'll turn the brake lights on before I actually go to the brakes.
I'll do that too.
If it's, like, a really critical situation where I don't wanna get hit. If there's, like, a really busy moment, and I don't wanna get hit, I'll turn the brake lights on early and then brake. Or if I just wanna throw them off a little, like, I know my car can brake really, really late. Actually, I've told the story of, like, no brake pads on my Civic, and I,
Yeah.
like, drove the whole race gently. Uh, that kinda thing, like, keeping that in my back pocket that
That was
I can
so
brake later, but I want you to think I have to brake.
yeah, so
Yeah, with the left foot.
that was a strength that you noticed in comparison to other car and you pulled it out when it mattered, right?
Yeah.
You could tell the story
Yep.
again. It's going into 10A at Road Atlanta, right?
Yeah, I mean, the scenario was that I didn't realize that I needed to replace my brake pads all year. And the outcome was
Stupid
I showed up
cars.
to the last race with no inside brake pads on either front of the car. The outsides were fine, but the insides were gone. And I knew my brakes sucked, so I did the whole race braking like even earlier than I knew I could, just to make it first to make it safe, but also it kind of dialed in the other guy to like this is where he thought I would break. And then on the last lap, I broke where I knew that I could actually break, and I won that race that way.
Because he thought, "Oh my god, I'm gonna get him in the last corner." Like, you took away because so that works like
It
because
was a draft race,
that was a
yeah. So
draft race, right? So
he
he
was just camping out until the last lap,
Yep.
but then he moved for it, and we were going down side by side into 10A, thinking I'm going to break at the X, and I carry my happy ass way past that, break at the Y, and I get the outside of 10A because he thought I was going to break totally different than I did.
So for the whole race, this person thought, "Oh, I know exactly how this is going to play out. He's going to break here. I'm going to break here. I'm going to get positive overlap at apex. I'll drive up, and I'm going to win the race." And he just sat and waited, and he fell in love with his plan as the race went on. He's like, "This is a perfect plan. There's nothing wrong that can happen with this plan. I've I've calculated every possible scenario, and I come out the winner, right?" And then you break a little bit later than you have been because that's actually where you could have broke the whole time, and you took away his perceived strength. That's the mind game stuff that I'm talking about that makes wheel to wheel racing so much fun. Daniel in the chat is asking, how do you turn on your brake lights a little early without actually hitting the brakes, like physically?
Oh, with my left foot.
Yeah, okay, so he asked like left foot. So
Yeah, because I'm talking, I'll do it like a half a board early, so I'll maybe like drag the brake pedal with my left foot just to turn the brake lights on until I actually go for the brake with my right.
yep, just enough to
Yeah,
like trigger the switch. You're not like actually hitting the brakes.
yeah.
You're just
And I don't
triggering
do
the
this very
switch.
often, but it's a really good trick to have in the back pocket if you are in. Honestly, I do it more in iRacing so I don't get crashed into than I do in real life, so that I can have an advantage. But if I don't trust someone behind because of some scenario, I will turn the brake, and I left foot brake all the time in the sim, so it's easier.
Yeah, if something is I've done this where I'm not left foot braking in real life, but like if it's it's always comes where like you don't fully trust that person behind you, but like you know that they're watching your car. Um like too much almost. You'll you'll get into the brakes just to turn the light on, and then you'll get into the brakes. Like you give them like a quarter of a second to like see brake lights, and then you're actually braking. And
Yeah,
that's just to kind of give it like a little bit of a heads up of like I'm braking. I'll do that on race starts if it's like a big clump of cars in front of me. I won't like charge full ABS into that
same.
empty space. I'll like turn on the brake lights a little early and then like let the space like fill up, or I'll fill up the space and then I'll like start like laying into the brakes.
Yep,
So the people behind me are like they're not also piling in. They're like, "Oh, brake lights." So everyone's on the brakes, but like I'm still like rolling forward into the space that I've talked about.
exactly.
Yeah. Wow. Is this the longest episode ever, Tom?
Did we go really long?
Yeah.
Oh, well, hopefully it's helpful.
I I I don't know if we got into the weeds too much. I'd love to hear you guys' feedback, but I think yeah, I think that's I would love to hear your feedback of somebody who's just starting out wheel to wheel, or somebody who's like been like standing on the sidelines going like, that's witchcraft. I don't even know how. Hopefully like we cleared up a lot of things and like hopefully guided your approach into like what wheel to wheel actually is and how the game is played out and what it looks like when you're playing the quote unquote game.
Yep, agreed. And if you have questions, you can obviously join Discord and ask questions at any time. We're running a little low on questions, so you don't have to ask anything serious even.
Yeah.
You just want to hear us goof around.
Yeah. It could be anything.
That's there.
Yeah.
What are you doing this weekend?
I was just about to ask you, Tom, what are you doing this weekend?
I'm going to Cincinnati for Father's Day.
Ah, Father's Day. I forgot about that. Sorry, Dad. I was gonna invite you to come out and do a 2-day autocross event in Pittsburgh.
Oh,
What about
yeah, I
Saturday?
would if I was.
You wanna come out on Saturday?
Well, I'm going to Cincinnati on Saturday
Yeah,
for things on Saturday
you
and
would do
Sunday.
that after the autocross on Saturday. You would drive all the way to Cincinnati from Pittsburgh. What is that? Like 6 hours?
No, yeah, no. Yes, it's 6 hours. No, I'm not going to do that. Not this weekend. That's where you're going?
Yeah, that's where I'm going. I'm I'm laser focused on nationals this year. I'm just I feel like I have a lot of stuff clicking for me right now, and I just want to like keep that going. So I know my dad listens to this podcast. Sorry, Dad, I'm missing Father's Day. Also, I had a Father's Day present for you, but you didn't come to the autocross last weekend, so maybe I'll mail it to you.
You can do a makeup one eventually. That's what we call ours next time we
Make
see each
make
other.
up Father's Day. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that could work. Toledo Pro Solo.
You're driving with Peter both days?
Yep, Peter Schnorr. Yep,
Cool.
yep. He
Hopefully they
find
do some fun runs and you get to drive some other stuff too.
Yeah, well, that's so I was gonna go to Charlotte if you've been listening to the podcast, but then I was like, okay, I go to Charlotte, I do 6 runs the whole weekend, and I couldn't find a seat in a class that I wasn't like where I would were how should I phrase this? I wanted to do a class where I'm like, I don't know if I'll be able to win that, right? Like that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to jump into a class where it was like super hard, and I couldn't find a seat in a class that like I perceived was like going to be like super hard, and I was probably going to lose. Like that's what I was. That's like the class I was looking for.
Yeah.
Um, and it so 6 runs, 8 hours away, have to buy a hotel, all that stuff. Or I just go to the 2 day event that's like right next to me and drive with Peter. Probably get fun runs. It's probably gonna be like a 30 run uh like weekend, and
Yeah.
I don't spend hotel money. So it's kind of it's kind of an easy choice, honestly.
Yeah, that's smart. Dang, you're gonna have so many events this year.
I'm trying. I'm trying so hard. I
That's
I'm
cool.
I'm still hungry for that national championship, Tom. I realized like I like last year we needed like I my takeaway was I just need to have like national championship winning runs more often. And I would say that this last weekend is like probably the first weekend where it didn't feel like I had one of those like for the whole
Mhm.
weekend. And the other weekends I'm like, "Oh, I had one of those." Whether it like actually counted or not, but like I had them at some point during the weekend. I was like, "Ah, cool. That was a national championship winning run. I just need to do that at nationals, right?"
Yeah.
Um and because my takeaway last year was I just need to have those runs more often. And then when I show up, if I'm having them more often, if they come out, awesome. If they don't come out, well, maybe they will next year, right? Um but yeah, I'm hungry, and not just for dinner. I'm hungry for dinner as well, but I'm hungry for nationals for sure.
I feel that. I mean, the years I've taken motorsports seriously for or all of these years, but the years that I was focused on autocross specifically doing 30 events a year, I was doing what you're doing. So I think that's what you have to do to an extent.
Yeah. So all right, well, Tom, we'll autocross someday together.
Yeah, soon.
You should do the Toledo Pro Solo, even though it's like way sold out.
I'll look into it. We'll see.
I
When
don't
is
know how
that?
long the wait list is, but maybe if you get on it, maybe and show up, maybe enough people won't show up where you can do it.
We'll find one eventually soon here.
Yeah, good. All right. All right. I guess that's the show. It will be an hour and 50 minutes.
And I
Thanks.
hope it was helpful for all of you people looking to become little race car drivers. While you do it, I love your hair and I hope you win.